Right. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to be presenting business intelligence tools for Dynamics GP. With us today, we have Deb Schaefer. She is our senior project manager, and she has been working here with us for a number of years, I think 8 years, Deb, and before that, she's got prior experience in this area as well. I'm Carolyn Moltzen, Customer Service Manager here at DFC, and we thank you all for joining us. I'm going to have everybody muted, at least in the beginning. At the end, I will unmute you. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, please use the lower left-hand icon for your questions. I will be monitoring that and letting Deb know if there's a question that comes up. And we are being recorded, and Sabrina will make sure that she gets this out to you after the session. So with that, we are going to let Deb go ahead and present the business intelligence tools for Dynamics GP.
All right. Well, thank you, Carolyn. Welcome, everyone. And we have a lot to cover today. So we are going to jump right into these BI tools for Dynamics GP. So we're going to start out looking at the data flow and logic of the GP tables. So how is that information laid out? What's the consistency so you know that you can recognize tables between different modules? We're going to look at business intelligence tools within GP, so including Smartlist. We're going to look at SSRS reports, Excel refreshable reports, a little bit of Power BI, and then other reporting options that are within GP as well. We'll look at how you can pull that data out of GP using those reports, and then we'll do some troubleshooting tips and hints on navigating the GP database. So I do have a handful of slides here at the beginning, but then the rest of the demo will be an actual going through examples and how you can do the reporting within GP. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the table structures. Each one of the modules is set up with a prefix. So on the left side there, the prefix GL stands for General Ledger. If you go down the list, you look at PM, it's Payables Management. So when you're looking at a table reference, and I have one that I'll show you when we finish this, you'll know that the modules are all identified based on those prefixes. So again, PM for Payables Management, RM for Receivables Management, SOP for Sales Order Processing, and etc. On the right side of the window, we have the table breakdowns. So table numbers will start with whether it's all zeros, a 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, etc. tables, and then the descriptions for those tables. So whatever module that you're in, the master tables will all be the 000. So if it's a GL 000 table, that's a master table. A work table is the 10,000 level tables. The 20,000 tables are the open tables. And then once everything is posted and moved to history, those will be in a 30,000 table. Any of your setup tables will start with a 40,000. And again, we'll jump over and look at a table reference so that you can see that. So this is consistent throughout the modules within Dynamics GP, and it makes it easier when you're doing things like building reports in Smartlist Builder or pulling tables for queries for SSRS and anything where you need that table information. So if you're creating views or any other reports. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about within this section is how data moves. So using the general ledger as an example, when you enter in transactions, those unposted transactions are work transactions. So when we looked at that table, the 10,000 tables were the work transactions. And then we have our open transactions, which are posted transactions, and those will be the 20,000 tables. And then again, our history tables are the 30,000 tables. And in the case of the general ledger, that's when you close your fiscal year. So some notes with the general ledger, all GL transactions are in the year-to-date transaction open table until you close the year and run that year-end close process. You can't move transactions back to open once they've been moved. Now, I do have an asterisk after that because we do have that ability to essentially reverse that year-end close process, but we would definitely want to have some discussion with that before users go in and try and do that on their own. The key there, for anybody who's heard me speak before, please make sure you're making backups before you go in if you're doing something like that on your own. And then the other item with the GL and everywhere throughout GP is that you cannot unpost transactions. So once you post a transaction, it is posted. There's not a way to reverse that out. So we're going to take a look at that table reference that I was telling you about. And I have a lot of stuff open for this webinar. So this is a table reference, and there's a number of places both on the web. I have this in a spreadsheet that you have access to these table references. So within the table reference here, we can see that I have my table identifier, and I'll just go up to the top here. We have the technical name of the table and then the display name of the table, and that's telling you when you're on the window what's the name that you're going to see on that window. The technical name is what you're going to see back when you're working in SQL or designing reports in SSRS. So I'm going to go down to the GL, the General Ledger section of this report, and we can see that with our GL master account table, that's the GL 00100 table. We also have the GL account index master. So one of the things as you're getting familiar with tables is to look at the data that's in them. There is more understanding as far as the relationships between those tables. Again, work in a test environment. Make sure you have your backup so that you don't accidentally lose any data. And if you don't want to do that, always backups and test environments to start with. Then we have our transaction work table, the 10,000 and the 10,001. Our clearing table, the 10,002. Then as we get down, the year-to-date transaction open table is the GL 20,000 table. The GL 30,000 table is the account transaction. And then our general ledger setup is the 40,000 table. And that general ledger setup is when you go into GP and you go to financial and setup and general ledger. So that's an example of the table layouts. The next thing that we're going to look at, and I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint, is we're going to start looking at the reports and doing a walkthrough. So an overview of what we're doing with these reports is we're going to look at the dashboards and Business Analyzer, how that's set up. We're going to look at My Reports and how to use that to make reporting that you run every month more easily accessible, getting the options set and saved so that you can just go in and run those reports. We're going to take a look at quick links, and then we'll go into the reports shortcuts. So we'll look at all reports, My Reports, custom reports. We'll take a look at Smartlist, Smartlist favorites, and the Smartlist options window. Then we'll get into the Excel reports, and I'll show you how to do a refreshable Excel report. We'll take a look at inquiries and then some all-in-one views. And once we get through those, then we'll go back and we'll look at SSRS reports and Power BI. So I am going to go back to my GP window. So within Dynamics GP, this is the home page that I have set up. And currently what I have on here is my to-do, Business Analyzer, My Reports, and then Procurement. And you can scroll down. I also have my quick links down at the bottom. You can rearrange these windows, whether you're dragging and dropping. So if you want to move My Reports up to the top, you can do that. You can rearrange the layout there. The other thing that you can do is you can expand. You can maximize your columns based on the reports and the items that you want to look at on your home page, as well as throughout the modules when you're using the navigation. To make changes to the home page, you're going to go to Customize this page in the upper right corner. And within this window, you can go in and look at, what do you want to show here? Do you want to see the to-do, the quick links? If you're doing anything with time management, you can show that information here. Procurement is the requisitions. So when you check these on, these are what will show up in on your homepage rather. So for Business Analyzer, I have that checked here, and if I go to the blue expansion arrow to go into Business Analyzer, these are all of the reports out of the box that are available. So I've added the reports that I want to show as this example. You can add a number of reports here, but keep in mind that if the number of reports that you add to Business Analyzer, the longer it takes for GP to load and launch because it's going through and pulling all of that data. And you will get a pop-up message once you exceed probably 10 reports or so that adding additional reports will affect performance in loading GP. Similar as throughout GP, you can rearrange the reports where you want them in the list and where you want them to show. It's very simple as far as adding reports. You can just click on an available report, choose the insert button, and that'll add it there. Similar with removing it, you're going to click on the report that you want to remove and hit the remove button. Once you have your report selected, you can click on OK. And then back on the Customize This page, you're going to click on OK again. And your home page is going to refresh. And I'm going to move the Business Analyzer reports over. My total sales year to date has a date issue in it, so it's not accurately reflecting the right numbers. But I can see my year-to-date sales by state. I have a breakdown there. And I'm just scrolling through at the bottom of this window here through the reports that I have selected from Business Analyzer. I can see employee birthdays if I want to have that. I have my receivable summary by type and count. And again, I'm back to my year-to-date sales. The next area that I want to go into is my reports. So my reports gives you the ability to go in and set up reports that you run on a regular basis, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly, from within GP so that you can just come here, click on that report, and have the report generated. So it's a real time saver if you're doing something like, say, trial balances. So we'll set up a quick trial balance example of that. I'm going to go into Financial, and then down to Reports, down to Trial Balance. And then within my Reports dropdown, I'm going to choose my Summary Trial Balance. And in this case, I want to set up a new trial balance report. So I'm going to click on New. I'm going to name this a Summary Trial Balance. I'm going to choose that I want posting accounts. And I'll leave the other settings up above. I want it for my open year. I want my functional amounts. I'm going to do my date ranges. Now, within date ranges, you do have the ability to not only enter specific dates that you want this to run, but you could choose to run by a current date, and you could run by beginning of month and run that through end of month. And you can insert that into your restrictions. The other thing that you want to do when you're creating reports throughout GP is to go into the destination and just make sure that printer is not your default printer selected. Otherwise, you end up sending a lot of things to the printer that you don't necessarily want. And I always mark on the ask each time, too. That gives you the option to, if you want to print that report, have it go right to your printer. So I'm going to click on OK there. And then I'm going to click on My Reports. So My Reports is going to show you the name. And I'm just going to actually, since I already know that it's a summary, which is what I selected from my report options. And I do want to identify that it's current month. Since I have beginning of month to end of month, that is going to go based on your system date. And I'm going to hit print just so we can verify the report is the way that we want it. So I have my trial balance there. I'm going to close this window and save, close. And I'm going to close out of here also. And then I'm going to go back to my home page. And now I have my summary trial balance current month. And now I can just come to my home page under my reports and I can click on this report. And it's going to just generate for me. So I don't have to go back through the report options and set everything up again. It's just a time saver as far as those reports that you need to run on a regular basis. The next thing we're going to look at here is quick links. So quick links within your home page is a way that you can, again, set links up that you spend a frequent amount of time in, or you jump around between different links, or rather different windows within GP. So let's say that you work in the general ledger most of the time. You want to be able to just open up that GL transaction entry window. We're going to add a quick link for that and just add that to this window. Then we don't have to go into GL and navigate to that. So I'm going to go into quick links, which if you didn't see where I did that, I just clicked on the pencil within the quick links window. I'm going to click on add. I'm going to choose a Dynamics GP window. We're going to go into transactions, financial, and general. I'm going to click on OK. We've added that to our quick links, and I'm going to move that all the way to the top and then click on OK. Now, with this window, you do need to refresh the window. You can do that either by hitting the refresh key, or you can go to another module and just go back to the home page then. General's there. I can just click on that, and it's going to open up that transaction entry window for me. So now I don't need to go into financial transactions and general ledger to get that opened up. The next area that we're going to look at is the report shortcuts. So within the Home tab, the home page of Dynamics GP, above the navigation pane, we have the preferences and shortcuts area here. So we're going to look next at the report shortcuts. The all reports, when you launch into that, that's going to load all of the reports that are available within Dynamics GP. It does take a little bit, it goes fairly fast though, to load all of those reports, and it's going to show you all the reports available within GP. There are about 2,200 reports that are going to load here. And that's about done, so I'll just let it finish out. So now we can see all of the reports that are available within GP. So I'm going to go down to actually the account. Actually, let's do account. We'll do account number here. And you can click on that report, and that in this case is going to take us into the transaction matching report options window. And you can see where these are going to go based on the additional information that is available. I'm going to then open up the account transactions. Let's mark that. And I'm going to drill back into the GP report. So drilling into the GP report is going to take you into Report Writer, and this is all of the standard GP reports. I'm going to click on OK here, and now we're within GP's Report Writer. Within this window, the main thing that you're going to do is go in and potentially look at how you need to modify a basic report out of GP. So one of the reports that we frequently modify is the direct deposit earnings statement. So for that report, and I'm going to select that direct deposit statement of earnings. I'm going to insert that, so that's going to become a modified report now. I can click on that, click on open, and this is going to give me the information for that direct deposit statement of earnings. Here, what I want to do is I want to go into the layout, and this is what the report looks like. So when you print out that direct deposit earnings statement, you're going to see this particular layout. So we'll modify this to add logos, but typically the main thing that people want is to remove the Social Security number. So whether they want to remove this and shift things around or just leave it, or rather take it off, you can do things with marking out this Social Security number except for the last four. So there's a number of different options for that. In this case, what I'm going to do is just actually delete the field off of the report, and I'll take off the label that goes with that as well. And then I'm going to close my report. I want to save the changes to it. And I'm going to close here and save the changes here also. So now I've made my changes. I'm going to close out of this, and now I need to get back into GP so I can run the report. I need to grant access to the report as well, but then we can run the report and see what it looks like. So I'm going to go into File, and you can go into Microsoft Dynamics GP from here. This will take you right back into GP. And then once we're in GP and my navigation pane comes up, we're going to go into Administration, and then we're going to grant access to that alternate window. Because if you, or rather alternate report, if you don't grant access to it, even though you've made the changes to it, the default report is still going to show up. So we're going to go into Administration and Alternate and Modified Forms and Reports. You will have to bring up the IDs that the users that print your direct deposit statement of earnings reports. You may have multiple IDs in here. You may just have this default user. And I am going to choose all products, and the type is a report. And you can either bring up the series of all, or you can limit that down to payroll. I'm just going to let that open up for all at this point. And then I can see that I now have my direct deposit statement of earnings listed here because it has been modified. And you either have the original report or the Dynamics GP modified report. So you want to make sure that you have that alternate report granted, the users granted access to that so they can run the modified report. I am going to save that. The next thing that we're going to go in and look at is the Excel reports. So I'm going to open up the Excel reports, and actually I'm going to go back to, this will work. So we're going to work with an Excel refreshable report, and the report that I'm going to pull is the account transactions report. And I don't want to use the AA reports, I just want the regular GP transactions. So I'm going to scroll through the Excel reports, choose my account transactions. We'll do this one actually. And then I'm going to launch into Excel. So that's going to open up an Excel window, and I'm going to enable this link, and let me cancel that. I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to re-pull that report. Okay. And what I want, there we go. Okay, so this pulled all of my GL transactions that I currently have that have not, that are sitting out in the GL, and I can see all of these transactions within Excel. So if you have users that you want to give access to, say, GL transactions to review, but they're not necessarily in GP, this is a way that you can get the data to them. They can refresh that data. You can let them know when it's available, but they can go into this link and refresh it. So I'm going to show you how we can do that. So back in Dynamics, I am going to go into Financial. And actually, I could just go for my home page and go into General and enter in my transaction. I'm going to assign it to a batch. And we're just going to create a transaction. So we'll just call this a test Excel. So I'm going to enter in a transaction to an expense. And our offset will be our cash account. And then I'm going to save that transaction. So this is transaction 3471. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to go back to, oops, what was one element, sorry. And I'm going to refresh my report. And now we have my journal entry 3471, and it's updated in the spreadsheet here. So now this is a very easy way that you can take the data from GP, get it out to Excel, and give users the ability to refresh those reports without them having to be in GP. We are going to look at inquiries next. I'm going to close out of here. So inquiries are another quick way to find data within GP, give you the ability to drill back on information, and also you can pull reports on this for users that you need to. Again, it's another way that you could pull data into Excel if you wanted to. So we're going to bring up the accounts payable account for my current year. And when I'm within an inquiry window, one of the things that I can do here is I can print this just by hitting the print button. I'm going to change that to screen. And so this will give me the information based on that account summary window for, in this case, my accounts payable account. So I still see the debits, credits, net change, and period balances. The other thing that I can do within this window is I can click on a line, and then by drilling back, anything that's underlined within GP that's highlighted here, you can drill back on and get to what makes up that dollar amount. So in this case, I can see that my debits are $679.43, and I can see the transactions here that make up those amounts. From here, I can drill back and see what was that journal entry, what was included in it. So I can see here that it's a transaction that went with accounts payable as well as an additional account, and I can see when that transaction was done. In this case, the source document tells me that it originated in the GL. So if I try to drill back on that, it's going to tell me that I can't because I'm as far back as that transaction can go. You can, however, go into transactions that originated, say, from accounts payable or accounts receivable, sales order processing, purchase order processing. You can drill back all the way to those original transactions and see that information. All right, the next area that we're going to take a look at is the all-in-one views. So the all-in-one views, we'll take a look at a vendor all-in-one view. So I'm going to go into purchasing and then go to cards and vendors and bring up our vendors. And we're going to take a look at my vendor advanced. So once you have your vendor brought up, you can click on this all-in-one view button. And what that's going to do is that's going to load all of the information, the top 5, for each of the different transactions that this vendor is attached to. So we can look at purchase orders, we can look at the receipts related to those purchase orders, we can look at the invoices, and then we can look at any payments. So I can drill back into that purchase order, and I can get into the purchase order and see the additional information related to it. If there's something specific that I'm looking for, we can do that. We can drill into the line item detail, see the accounts that are assigned to it. Maybe there's receipt date, promise information. You can see all that from this window, and you have it all in one very convenient place that you can access. So if you're looking for something specific or you just need a summary at a quick glance, you can see where that vendor's at. Do the same thing with receivings. To see the receipt information here, you can do the same thing with payments, where you're drilling back into that payables transaction. Maybe you want to see the distributions on that. You can see the distributions here for the payments, which will be your cash and payables. At the bottom, you have the ability to move to the next 5 in the columns that have more than 5 receipts, in this case, or invoices to display. Once you click on the next one, then you can then click previous to go back. All right. So that is our all-in-one view. The next thing that we're going to take a look at here is SQL Server Reporting Services. So with SQL Server Reporting Services, and let's go back to this. So SSRS is your SQL Server Reporting Services. And what it allows you to do is it's a server-based, scalable, extensible platform for deploying and creating reports. And you have these with SQL, as GP is SQL-based, and you have that ability to get to your SQL Server Reporting Services. So I am going to go out to my SQL Server Report Manager. And when you go out to SQL Server Reporting Services, this is what you would see. You'll have your company database information there. In this case, because I'm working with Fabricam, I have mine based on the two company. So within this window, you're going to go into your company database, and then you can see all the modules. When these reports are deployed, which I will back up just a step here to see, so that you can see where that is within Dynamics GP. So I'm going to go into Administration, and then under System, on Reporting Tools Setup. This is where you can go to see if your SQL services, or rather SQL reports and Excel reports have been deployed. So you'll have your report server URL and your report manager URL, and you'll be able to see here that your reports are deployed or not deployed within this window. You also have the ability to define if you're using any CRM connections, use Windows Authentication. Also from this window, you're going to see your Excel reports, and you can see the directory of where those Excel reports will be stored. And you will have your Power BI setups as well. You'll need to put your client ID here. And again, you're going to see that everything is, whether or not everything is deployed. The key thing here is where your report server is for SQL Server Reporting Services. So I'm going to close that, and we'll go back to the Report Manager. Once those reports are deployed, then all of the reports that are available out of the box are available to your users as long as you give them access to this. So things that you can do here is you can go out and you can run a trial balance summary similar to the report that I created. You can run this right from SQL Server Reporting Services. You can choose to limit by account numbers if you want. You can choose to do historical years. And actually, I am going to do a historical year because I want to do 2017. And once you have your selections made, then you're just going to choose to, sorry, I did not want historical years. Oops. Put a date in there. History. Okay. And okay, so once you have all your parameters set, then your report will generate. And it looks like I may not have any data in this. Let's go back a year here. So that is going to then give you, based on your restrictions, the information for that summary trial balance, and it'll include then your restrictions at the bottom of the report. So I'm going to go back to financial, and again, these are the out-of-the-box reports. So you have these for the financial area, which is going to include your fixed assets. And then if you go back one more step, you can get into the different modules. If you're using products key to act, then you will have additional modules here for service, job cost, and equipment. When you want to create a new report, we're actually going to create a customer report here in the sales module. So I went into sales, and then I'm going to click on Report Builder to open up the report. And I'll let that launch. And we're going to do a new report. We're going to choose the table or a matrix wizard. We are going to create a data set. So I'm going to choose next. And then mine is defaulted in here to GP2. But in order to get to that data source, what you're going to do is you're going to browse and you're going to choose data sources. And then you'll see your two different data sources, in this case that I have available. You'll see yours as far as your company data sources. So I'm going to choose that GP2, and that will show here. You can test the connection to make sure that everything is pulling correctly. And then do next. And then you're going to go in and choose your data. So I'm going to go down to the views actually, and I'm going to choose a customer view. That's going to pull in our customer information. And then do next. And now we're going to choose what we want that data to look like. So I am going to drag the customer name over to the row groups. And we're going to create this report actually just for aging buckets. So I'm going to grab aging buckets 1 through 7, and you can hold the shift key down to grab the group of reports here rather than clicking individually. You can also do the control key. So then I'm just going to drag these over to my values and then do next. You can choose to do subtotals here if you wanted to. For this example, I'm going to uncheck that and then do next. You can then choose how you want to see the information. So do you want to see the blues with the ocean? You could do a mahogany if you wanted. You can do a generic, which is just clear. So you have those selections here, and then click on Finish. This is going to take you to your report where you can go in and enter in a title. So I'm going to call this customer list, or rather a report name. And once you have that done, then you're going to click on Run in the upper left corner. And that's going to show you your report. So now you can see each of your aging buckets and your customer totals here. Once you have the report set the way you want it, then you're going to click on the Save button, which is way up at the top of the window. You're going to click on Save. And when you're doing that save, you want to drill into where do you want this report to show up. So I'm going to drill into my To company, and then I want that to show up under Sales. And I'm going to call this, so I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it my customer list. And choose Save. And now, when I come back out to Sales, so I'm going to go back to To and then back into Sales so that can refresh. And now we have our customer list here, and that'll load and print for us. And you can get very much more detailed into the reports that you're creating and the data that you're pulling, but this gives you a basic start on what you're looking to do with those reports. So the next thing that we're going to look at is Power BI. So with Power BI, I'm going to get down to this one. So what I've done here is I've just launched Power BI. I haven't done any data connections or anything yet, so I'm going to do that now. When you're in your Power BI desktop, And I do, in the PowerPoint, I do have a screenshot of the Power BI desktop and the items there. I mean, we'll come back to that one, and I know that Sabrina is always very good about sending the PowerPoints out as well. Side note with that, I will also include links for the table references. So not only the Excel one where I got that, but there are a number of other sites that have updated the tables through 2016 and 2018. The table reference that I have as a basis is from 2013. So back on Power BI, our desktop, the first thing that you need to do here is get data. So I'm going to click on Get Data, and in this case, I'm pulling from my Dynamics GP, so I'm pulling from a SQL Server. It's going to ask me what's my SQL Server, so I'm going to identify that. And I know that this is my computer and my GP instance that I have running. And then the database that I want. And because I'm using Fabricam, I know my database is 2. And I'm going to have my data connectivity where you can do an import or a direct query. And in this case, I'm just going to do an import. And that's going to go through and pull the available data. So I am going to, from this list, go down and I'm going to find sales line items. And that's going to give me a number of different, well, quite a few different tables. So it's going to give me customer information, it's going to give me sales information, and it's going to give me item information. So I'm going to go down and grab my sales line items. Too far there we go. So I'm going to choose sales line items, and this is just going to tell me, or show me rather, an example of that data. So I'm going to see the top type, item number, the description. I'm going to be able to scroll over and see extended costs and prices, unit cost, customer information. And that'll give me a place to start as far as what I want to see on my dashboard. So I'm going to let that load. And it does take a little bit, depending on the amount of data that you have. And it's almost completed here. So once this data loads, we're going to see all of the fields on the right side of the window. The middle section of that pane is going to give us the ability to change what kind of graphs we want to see, whether it's bar graphs or pie charts. The different graphs are all listed there. We have ability to change colors and make things very colorful depending on what we want to do with this. And then we'll have the ability as well to do filters on our data. So the first thing that we're going to do is let's pull our customers, and then we want to see maybe extended prices along with that. So I'm going to scroll down in the fields that are available. And this is what's available based on the data that we pulled. So I'm going to get my customer name, and I'm just going to drag that out here on my report. So this will give me all of my customers. And then let's actually go down and pull our year-to-date sales. So those are all under total sales year-to-date. There we go. Almost there. Okay, so total sales year-to-date. And we just drag that on top of the customer. And so what that does then is that gives us our total sales year-to-date for our customers. So now if we want to take this and let's say we want to make this into a pie chart, we can do that. Now let's create another one that is total sales year-to-date by items. So I'm going to actually scroll back up here to my items. And you could do this either by item number or item description. And I'm going to do item description in this case. And I also want to throw item classes on here. And then let's do our, again, total sales year to date. And throw that on here too. And if we want to see that in a bar graph, we can do that. So now we have the ability, if we wanted to say limit the item class, we could do that. So I am also going to add, let's keep this one up here, and we're just going to scoot that up a little bit. And let's add one more report now. So let's add our item description with actually, let's just do item class with extended prices. So I'm going to run back up here. Sorry for all the scrolling. So we're going to do an item class, and we're going to scroll up and grab our extended prices. And we'll make that a, let's not do stacked. Let's do this one. Okay. And you can add another one if you wanted to. Maybe you wanted to bring customers and extended prices in. So customers will be up here. So let's just grab our customer name once more, and we'll grab that extended price. And we'll toss that on there. And we'll give that another graph here. Okay, so now we have all of these graphs on here. We can see very quickly where things are at based on the selections that we made. We could go into the sales year to date by customer, and if we wanted to, say, limit this by the top 10 customers or top 10 sales. So we could go down into the filter section. We could do less than X number of dollars. We could do a greater than. We could do an is not or blank. And we can do the same thing with customer names. So we could do, whether it's basic filtering, if you wanted to select individual customers specifically, if we wanted to do the top 10, we can do that. And we can and let's see, let's do work now. And where the value of the items is less than, let's say, 500. Okay, so maybe not 500. We'll do 250. All right, so I'm going to actually clear that because I do want to show you some of the other functionality here, and I don't want to do a less than. So let's clear that and put this back. So you can see you've got filtering. You have the ability to go in and do different colors and values. You can drag additional fields for the restrictions. But the other really neat thing is when you're working with the Power BI information is that as you click on information within a particular graph, that's going to update the other graphs that you've included with that dashboard. So as an example, if I click on Plaza 1 here, I can now see that on my other graphs, it's showing me and pulling out that data that's specific to that customer Plaza 1. If I want to look at a particular inventory item, then it's going to refresh and show me the information that's relevant to that inventory item. That's a little harder one to see there, but it's You can see within the customers which customers have that. When you mouse over or drill over to the different customers or the different information on your graph, it's going to refresh based on that graph information. Once you have your dashboard the way that you want it, then you're ready to publish that dashboard out so that other users have access to it. You can share it with other users. And to do that, you're going to click on Publish. And it's going to ask, first of all, if you want to save your changes. And we'll call this GP Reports 2. And click on Save. And at that point, then you're going to get the working on it message, and it is going to be working on publishing that data out. You can choose where you want to publish that, so I'm going to put it out on my workspace. And I'll let you know that it's working on it there. And as soon as it's available then, should be just shortly, you'll get a message that there was success. It's not there yet. We'll open that up. And it'll be there just shortly. Choose your account, get launched in. And your report will be available for sharing out with other users. You put it in different shared locations so that other users can grab this data and utilize it also. So, we've covered a lot in the last 50 or so minutes. Carolyn, are there any questions?
There are no questions, but let me unmute everybody here and see. I have to do them one by one, it looks like. Okay. And if you had muted yourself, for those that had joined on the phone, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your questions. Deb, I thought of one myself for the SSRS reports.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned we could, are those Excel that we can publish out to non-GP users?
Mm-hmm.
But what about SSRS? Those can go out to non-GP users as well?
Yes.
But they would just need to have a SQL cal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So those are a lot less expensive, and I think almost everybody uses a SQL cal for something anyways. Which,
I should clarify that a SQL cal may not be needed if they're only receiving that report. So one of the things that you can do with SSRS reports is you could say create a daily sales report, and that report would be generated, but you have the ability then to email that report out.
Sure.
So whoever the recipient is there
Mm-hmm.
probably does not need a SQL cal for
Okay.
that, since they're just receiving the report.
Okay.
So.
And do any of those reports have like links back to GP in SSRS?
Well, they pull the data from GP.
But if they wanted to deep dive into it, is that something?
Oh, as far as like a drill back?
Yeah.
I do not believe there is the ability to
Okay.
drill back from SSRS into GP.
Okay.
Unless we put some kind of a specific link in that, but in that case, they would probably need access to that.
There's other reporting options if anybody's looking to have somebody have the ability to drill back. So.
Yep.
Okay.
One other thing I thought of that I did not show that I did want to. So I'm going to go back into GP, and one thing that there is a question on a fair amount actually is when you're looking at Smartlist. And I'm just going to open up Smartlist here quick and grab a, let's just do payables transactions. So I'm going to grab my payables transactions here. So one thing with your Smartlist is if you look down at the bottom here where you always see your statuses, so we have the number of payables transactions in this case. I can see the status of my Smartlist and then my first 1,000 records here. So you can go into the search and change those maximum records here, and then save the report as one of your favorites, and then that will be changed. Anytime you go run that report, as long as you have it saved, it would be updated with that. But one thing that you can do is within administration, you have the ability under administration, setup, system, and then the very last option before company is Smartlist options. And you can go in and you can change that maximum records default for your Smartlist. So if there's reports that you know you're always going over that 1,000 records and you want to just to stay at that default regardless of the report that you're pulling, you can change that in this window and update that, and that'll update within your Smartlist then, so that when you pull, in this case, I just changed the vendor listing, so I'm going to go in and just grab that vendor list quick. And now my records is always going to be at 5,000 for those. The other thing that you may have a question on is you do have the ability to turn on and off that auto hide of the selection pane for Smartlist, and that's found under Smartlist options. The very last one, the favorites pane, this enable auto hide. So if you put that on when you run reports, I'll just run another one here, then your selection pane just auto hides, and you just click on this arrow to bring it back. If you prefer to leave that open all the time, just go under Smartlist options, favorites pane, and then uncheck that enable auto hide. All right.
Okay, there are still no questions in the queue here. If you think of others, if you work with Jody Buckles or myself, you can go ahead and just email us and we'll make sure that we get the information to Deb. And with that, we'll end today's webinar. Thank you so much, Deb.
Thank you.
Giving us this.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Really appreciate it. And watch for the recordings to come out from Sabrina. So thank you all very much.